Here.
Councilmember Aaron Good.
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake.
Here.
Councilmember Brett.
Here.
Do we have any public comments, Melissa? Okay. Consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or comments on it? Okay. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion for the consent agenda?
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Reports, any council member have a report, Lisa?
I just wanted to give a quick update to let you all know that Aaron and I had the listening session last night, and there were only 5 people there. So hopefully next time we might get a few more than that. But thank you to anyone who's here today or listening who was there last night. I did not have a chance to write up the report yet. So what I'll do is I'll include that in the next meeting's packet. And just wanted to touch on 2 things that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention in case it's something that council would like to work on. There was there was quite a bit of discussion about the Old Town area. And I know we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but I thought it might be good for us to set up a time when we can all look at what our goals are for the Old Town area, what we'd like to see that look like, review the dream book, whether that's still a priority for all of us, and kind of how what our vision is for that long term. So that was one of them. And then the other one was that one of the ladies who was there had asked about us promoting Heart Health Month for the health district. And that brought up, I talked to staff a little bit after that about what we can do to have some kind of community board or community calendar or something like that, so that people who have events that would positively impact community members can advertise or promote those in some way. And so those were kind of the 2 that I wanted to bring to your attention. Everything else I'll write up for a council report and include it next time. Aaron, was there anything that I've missed there?
Nope, I think you summed it up well.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, finance report. Did you want to, I thought there were a couple things that you would want to bring up or not.
Yeah, I can just give a quick update. In addition to the monthly financials, you'll have a report from Ellers. So we hired Ellers to look at our current debt obligations and investigate whether it would be possible to refinance. They completed that analysis and they approached Compass and asked if they would be willing to renegotiate any of those loans. And Compass came back and basically said, we'll let you refinance early, but you are going to pay all of the yield maintenance and the prepayment penalties. So based on those costs, it's not cost effective right now to visit it any further. There is a merger with BBVA, Compass, and PNC, and once that's complete, Ellers will see if that changes anything. And that's all I had.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Any staff members want to add to their report or elaborate? Okay.
Mayor, I believe that there was a question that was coming up regarding the Harmony medians and the landscaping that's on the medians out there.
Okay, yeah.
I'd like to give you a little update on that. As you can tell, there's a fair amount of dieback on the medians over time. Last year when we were exploring it, at that time, it wasn't a good time to really approach and replant because the winter months are not really great for planting and then things surviving and thriving. So we're at the moment now where we've got a proposal in from Mill Brothers Landscape, who did a lot of the work in the medians to the east of 3 Bell. And there's some warranty work that they're going to be doing, but we're looking at evaluating some of the plant material choices to make sure that they're the right choices. And we're going to be walking that next week with them and our arborist, the town's arborist that we have right now, and getting some good recommendations, and then bringing a proposal forward to get those plant materials replaced in the near future.
Who is the town arborist?
Well, we're under contract with Fine Trees, Josh Fine, and they've been doing it for the past 4 years-ish, 4 or 5 years.
So are they going to replace those trees at their cost? I mean,
Some will be at their cost, and some are beyond the warranty period. So some of the trees survived through the warranty period and now have declined so much so that we need to replace them on the town's dollar. But the other ones are under warranty. So there's a fair amount, like I say, east of 3 Bell Parkway that are under warranty yet.
okay. Also, Matt, do you want to give us an update on the air quality?
Yes.
Let
program?
me follow
I'm
up on
sorry.
this topic
Yeah, go ahead.
before we leave it. I noticed that when Mills was working on the median down this way, they shut off one whole lane
Oh, that was.
and it backed up traffic forever.
That was a different, that was Alpine. We have 2 contracts. Mill
Okay.
Brothers is actually maintaining from the railroad tracks to the east, and then Alpine Gardens is maintaining from the railroad tracks to the west. And that we had indicated to them, this traffic plan is not going to work. We need it to be this way. And there was miscommunication on their end between their traffic group, and they closed the whole lane for an entire day or whatever. And it really was, we were out there moving cones ourselves because it was not,
As usual, the staff's on it. Thanks.
yeah.
All right, then going back to the air quality and the canister program.
Yes, we actually met recently with the CSU folks to kick it off and get our logistical strategy put in place, where we're going to be locating the continuous monitoring device, and where we'll be locating the slow collection canister. So I've been working with a couple different property owners to get the best location for that. And then in the next couple of weeks, probably, we'll be reaching out to the citizens that showed interest to get them instructed on how to use the canisters. And we'll be kind of kicking everything off probably middle part of June. So, and then it'll run for 3 months from that point. So we are moving forward. We've got the contract is all in place, and CSU and CDPHE are all teed up, and everything's ready to go.
So is it going to be 3 months in a row, or are you going to spread that out, or what are you thinking, Matt?
So that's a great point. One of the concepts is, if we're seeing some readings that are, higher, or there's a pathway that's like, well, we should keep it going consecutively, we'll just run it consecutively. If the readings are coming in low and we're not getting much, we might pause for a month or 2 and then pick it up again. So we're getting kind of a spread out to make sure that we're not missing something. There may be another window that's like a better window, or that's the wrong choice of word, but another window that might be more prevalent of odors. So we'll try to match up with what's going on in the environment. So there's no hard and fast answer at this point, but the first month at least, we'll be looking at it and seeing where we fall, and then we'll continue on second month, third month, or we'll push it to a couple months later.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
Any other staff members have a comment, Matt? Don?
Yeah, if I'll go back on it, and I do have something here. So just to add to the staff report relative to Busk Road, to give you the most current information, we're meeting with the contractor almost daily, and we're formulating a plan for looking at the road in sections and trying to get the most economical way to the term we use, heal it from the amount of moisture that we've got there. And if this weather can cooperate with us a little bit over the next week, we'll have a plan that we think is the most economical way to approach it. And we will do that, and I'll tell you about it as it goes.
Okay. All right. Going to business, ordinance number 5, series 2021, public hearing, and ordinance approving Timnath landing plan development overlay amendment. And I notice it's a public hearing. So does public talk now or later?
Mayor, we'll do a staff presentation first, and then we'll have the applicant do their presentation, and then we'll open it for public
Okay.
comment, and then it'll be back to the council for discussion.
That's great. Thanks.
Yep. And let's give Kevin just a second to set up.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to present both the PD overlay and the preliminary plat together because they both go hand in hand. Because the PD overlay also kind of sets up the groundwork for the preliminary plat, so you'll kind of get a better idea of kind of how both of those interact with each other. So for the PD overlay, we're essentially talking about 2 areas of the Timnath Landing subdivision. Once Matt gets that going. There we go. So they're highlighted in blue. Harmony Road, north of Harmony Road, with the Signal Tree roundabout. Essentially, we're talking about the area just to the north and northwest of the roundabout, just north of Harmony Road on Signal Tree. And then a portion just north of Harmony Road. Just north of Harmony Road and kind of northeast of the railroad tracks. So the areas are currently zoned RMU and R2 that we are talking about for PD overlay. And then this is pretty much the major changes to the PD overlay. So this is an amendment to their existing PD overlay. Currently, we're talking about areas that they've been depicted as the MUTH. That's the area just north of the roundabout, and then the R2 alley load. That's the area just on the north east of the railroad tracks. So the major changes to this area they're requesting to reduce the lot sizes from 1,800 square feet to 1,200 square feet, and then reduce the lot width from 20 feet to 17 feet, and reduce the lot frontage from 18 feet to 17 feet, and then reduce the front yard utility easement from 14 feet to 8 feet. The changes to the R2 alley load area would reduce the lot sizes from 5,750 square feet to 3,500 square feet, and then reducing the lot width from 50 to 40 feet, and then reducing the lot frontage from 30 feet or 35 feet to 30, and then increase the maximum impervious lot coverage from 50% to 75%, and then along with that, reduce the side yard setbacks from 7 to 5. These changes are being requested in these 2 areas to provide more of a pedestrian-friendly development by having front porches and yards be the prominent visual from the streets while having garages in the backs of homes. These 2 amendments are strictly for these 2 areas. It does not apply to the rest of the Timnath Landing subdivision. It is specific for these 2 areas that they've highlighted here and I have called out previously. This is just an example of kind of what the product type that they would be providing. It's just a high level concept, just kind of generally showing where the alleys would be, where some parking for garages, parallel parking. And then as you can see that they have the fronts of homes that would be fronting some open space or the street directly. So with that, I will kind of move into the preliminary plat amendment 2 for this. So this is a map showing the overall preliminary plat amendment. This is to create 125 single-family detached fee simple lots. The single-family attached lots will range from roughly the 13,000 or 1,300 square feet to 3,500 square feet. These lots were reviewed against the R3 dimensional standards per the land use code for lots located in the RMU zoning district, and then against the amended PD overlay that's before you tonight. The density for this area will be roughly 12 units per acre. This development is also providing 22% open space, park area, and trail connections. That 22% meets what was previous code for this, since this submittal was submitted prior to our recent open space amendment to the land use codes. It was reviewed off of that code, so that is why it meets the 20% open space requirement at that time. And they are providing 22% with this development. A neighborhood meeting was held for this proposal back on April 12th with the purpose of gathering feedback. No residents had attended, since there are really no residents in Timnath Landing, and therefore an observation report was not generated. Staff has reviewed this application in conformance with the land use code and the proposed PD overlay and find it to be in conformance. With that, we have the owner tonight is CAC Timnath, which is represented by Michael Kirkendall. The applicant is PCS Group, represented by John Prestwich, who I think both might be saying a few things, but I will turn it over to John for a brief presentation that he's got.
All right, well, good evening. Is this on? Looks like it. First off, thanks for taking time out of your evening to hear about the Timnath Lakes PD amendment and preliminary plat, upcoming minor subdivision as well. John Prestwich with PCS Group, Denver, 200 Calumet Street, Denver, Colorado, 80223. We're the land planners and landscape architects for the Timnath Lakes community. One of the first things that we kind of wanted to point out is while all of the documents say Timnath Landings, we've recently kind of made the decision to call this community Timnath Lakes and really focus on the lakes that we're creating. So you actually see the image on this opening slide. It's from a site model that we've built for the community, and it's from one of the internal lakes looking to the west. I always want to take a quick moment and thank Kevin and staff for helping us get to where we are tonight. And I also want to acknowledge all of our team members who have helped with the creation of this community. So, not to go too deep into the history, but this slide sort of highlights all of the steps that have been completed to date for the community. Back in 2015 was when we first presented and received approval for the sketch plan. And again, in 2015, received the original approval for the PD and comprehensive plan amendment and some rezonings. And then all the way through 2020, we've brought forth some final plats, and we're excited to tell you that David Weekley has sold about 20 homes. They've got models open now for their paired home community, or they're not open yet, built for their paired home community. And then again, not to go too far off here, but I always think it's nice to sort of give you the broader picture if possible. So these are some of the initial renderings for the larger Timnath Lakes community. Again, not really specific to tonight, but this image is taken up in the air overlooking the large park area adjacent to Harmony Road. You can start to see some of the lakes in the top right, and the alley-load townhomes are actually facing to this park. Again, just some preliminary images. This is one of the lakes looking towards what we envision as the clubhouse area for the community, just north of the main park that we looked at. And then this is an image of something we're calling Grove Park. And this park is actually just to the north of the area we're going to be reviewing this evening, the townhome area, and adjacent to the future Timnath Parkway. Okay, so here's the approved sketch plan for the community, and we're just highlighting filing 1. That's where David Weekley is currently building the single-family homes. Filing 2 is where David Weekley is currently building the models for their paired homes. And then the teal color, just to the north of the paired homes, is the preliminary plat for the townhomes we're reviewing this evening. And then the orange color, well, that's a little bit later, but the orange color is for the minor subdivision. And right adjacent to the park is the alley load area. So as Kevin mentioned, Timnath Lakes has an approved PD that basically sets the standards for the development. And the general purpose, as he mentioned, of this PD amendment is to modify some of those standards to fit specific home types that we just didn't think about when we originally did the PD back in 2015, 15. So again, this amendment is limited to 2 specific areas we can see on this slide, and they are internal to the Timnath Lakes community. Secondly, the dimensional standards that are really being proposed to be modified for this area adjacent to the neighborhood park. The previous plan anticipated typical front-loaded homes in that area, and now we're proposing alley-loaded homes, which we think provides a higher quality streetscape because there's no driveway interruptions along the street, and the homes generally have a higher degree of architectural interest without that large garage taking up a good chunk of the front of the house. And this also addresses a previous concern we heard about having the rear of homes with privacy fences face Harmony and the park area. And then on the townhome area, which is sitting right behind the future commercial along Harmony Road, we're requesting to modify really just the minimum width that's permitted by code, which then also translates to the smaller lot size because the depths don't change along the row. And then, that really allows for a wider variety of townhomes in that area. So this slide depicts a view of the alley-served homes looking across from the park. And then as Kevin kind of showed this, these are the lot typicals that show the 2 different home types. On the left are the townhomes. We've depicted them in 2 configurations. One is where they face directly onto the street. That's on the very top. And then just below that is where they face onto a small park area. Sometimes we call that a green court. We've done the same thing with the alley-served homes on the right side of this slide. And the homes at the top face directly to the local street. And then again, the ones on the bottom face towards a park area. And these drawings are a little technical in nature, and we try and show you a little bit more, what it's actually going to look like. So here's an illustrative plan view of the townhome area. That's the preliminary plat number 2. A couple quick notes I think we wanted to point out. The zoning would actually allow for multifamily uses in this zone district up to 16 dwelling units per acre, or about 168 units in this area. And our proposal is for 125 townhomes that are all alley served. These are homes for sale, they're not for rent. We kind of looked around the area and we recognized that, there has now been a fair amount of multifamily either built or proposed in this general area, mostly to the south. So it just seemed like a slightly lower density for sale home type in this location was more logical. And then again, the proposal also allows for the townhomes to face parks or green courts when they're not facing the street. So what does all of that look like? So this image is a view of the townhomes when they're facing directly onto a street. Again, I think one thing that's important to note, while there's a reduction in the utility easement that we've worked with the utility folks on, there's not an actual modification to the setbacks. So the fronts of these homes include an uncovered front porch area, front patio area, and then again, higher quality architecture with lots of windows and undulations in the front facade, which I think you get an even better sense of when I go a little bit up in the air. So hopefully you can kind of see how much variation and undulation there is in that front elevation. And then one of the requests from town staff was to see if we could, in this design, accommodate perpendicular parking spaces along the garage. So we were able to accommodate that in this layout. And then additionally, I think it's important to note, we actually do have dedicated guest parking off of the alleys. And then again, with no driveway interruptions, there's actually more parking spaces available along the streets in front of the homes. This slide depicts the townhomes fronting onto one of the small park areas. We think that's a really ideal situation. Having a park directly out your front door will be very appealing to folks. And then again, just another image of the same thing from a slightly different angle with the homes fronting directly onto the park area. So to kind of to wrap up a little bit, these proposals are consistent with the approved sketch plan, and we have been thoroughly reviewed by town staff and the referral agencies. Staff has recommended approval, and also this proposal furthers the comprehensive plan goal of providing more diversity of housing, as well as providing new housing opportunities and products for the town, as well as the improved look from Harmony Road by not having the rear of homes face Harmony Road. And so thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer questions. I guess after public.
Anybody on council have questions? Thanks. Melissa, do we have anybody for public hearing?
I do have a question for
Anybody?
staff
Yes,
or
go
something.
ahead.
So compared to what we did in 2015, and I know that density was a concern in 2015. I was the only council member on at that point in time, but there was a struggle with the amount of density that was coming in. Does this change? How does that affect the density compared to what we were expecting back then?
So what was actually approved for multifamily could have been up to 250 units for this area. They're providing 125, so they're cutting that density in half. So
Okay.
we're actually getting less density in this area than what they could have originally.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Mark, I'll take a question when you have a second.
I will make a comment to it. It's to answer your question more fully is the old one, which you were helped change, which was at 20% and got moved to 25%.
Mhm.
And Kevin, go ahead and explain the timing of that. But currently we're at 25%. The old one was 20%, and they had applied when it was the 20%, whereas now we are at 25% open space. Do I have that right, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that's more or less what Brett was going to go after. Aaron was merely going for dwelling unit density.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But I can answer that question. So, yeah, so this submittal was actually submitted in August of 2020. We didn't bring the change of 20 to 25% open space for townhome product until February, March of this year. So since it was submitted prior to that, it was reviewed under the current code at that time, which was the 20% open space. Just a comparison for you all to kind of get an understanding of the Trailside Rendezvous development just to the east of us, that has roughly 23% open space with a similar concept of townhomes fronting open space, rear loaded alley lots, things like that. So it's very comparable to that, just to give you a visual.
Did you have a question, Brett?
So regarding parking around the alley loaded homes, so we set up we've made the alleys wide enough to where that picture you had up there was a good one. So I assume, we have some extra the idea of making these alleys wide enough was to accommodate more vehicles and fit in the garage if you have guests or whatnot. What I am curious about is, there will still be some level of on-street parking, and it will look different compared to if you'd had a driveway neighborhood. How do you anticipate all that staff or the applicant to answer that?
Kevin's
Could you
looking.
address how that
You
will
go for it,
look
John.
and make sure that parking's not going to be a mess, essentially?
Sure, no. Well, with traditional front load homes, right? Let's say it's a 50-foot wide lot. You've got almost 20 feet of that taken up by driveway. So you can't park in front of that driveway. So and the driveway is always set off at least 5 feet from the property line. So you're really over 25 feet of your 50-foot wide lot, you can't park in front of. So you really can only park legitimately one car in front of that house, which is why you have the 2-car driveway.
Right.
But if we had the same scenario here, you could park 2 cars in front of that same area, same length. But then I wanted to point out too, that we also do have, oh, it's really hard to see. Sorry, but we do have parking area. Oh, these don't work. We actually are meeting code requirements with guest parking off of the alleys, in addition to the parking behind the garage, in addition to the parking that you can have in the street. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah. So Brett, if you see there's pockets kind of where I'm
Okay.
hovering that have guest parking that they have kind of separated out through the project. That they
Okay.
they are
Okay.
providing additional parking other than the driveways and the kind of the apron for a parallel parking that
Okay.
would act as an additional third car parking space on the back end.
Okay. Yeah, I was a
It's
little
hard
concerned
to
that you might
see.
have a couple homes that decide to throw a party and then you really clog up that street in a hurry. And
Totally.
I guess going back to that parking picture, yeah, my understanding is you guys have done these kinds of alley loaded homes in other areas. From a pragmatic standpoint, do you actually see cars parked like that white car does? Like, do we really count that as an effective?
You'll see it where somebody either just running groceries in and out, or it's a good friend who's just dropping by.
Mhm.
And you'll see it more on the end units than anywhere else because you'll typically have a connection to the front.
Okay. Okay. One question, I guess, about open space. So I understand that you were meeting the code with that was originally 20%. Do you anticipate any increases between preliminary plat and final plat from the 22%, or do you feel like that's a pretty?
In this specific area, I think that's a pretty solid number.
Uh-huh.
But one thing I do want to point out, let's go back where you can see the overall, oh, there you go. So if you look at the overall community, we well exceed 20%. It's when we're coming in with each little filing, we've actually started working on this for Kevin now because of some other applications that we have going on. We're preparing, I should say, an overall open space exhibit, and I'm going to cheat 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to verify because I didn't do it and Jeff did.
Okay.
Would you mind speaking up just a little too,
Sure.
or put your mouth closer to the mic?
Absolutely. So just to be clear, we're preparing this open space exhibit to answer some of these questions right now. I wish this would work, but there's sort of an area that runs diagonally through thank you.
Talking about that one.
Through the property. That's really what we kind of think of as a demarcation line to some future phases. So analyzing this right now, we're at about 40% open space south of that line.
Okay.
And that's important for us because we look at it as a whole community and not as much, while we bring in filings that are not the whole community, we look at it as the whole community.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a resident doesn't care about filing boundaries either. So I think that's a relatively fair way. And I like the general idea of the varied housing product. Just to make sure you understand that our goal was to make sure that when higher density product is being used, it's not being used to shove as many people as we can in an area, but to give some level of trade-off that just works a little different. And I did notice how you have a really high percentage of usable open space in this filing, which I appreciate. And I think that's fantastic. So thank you.
Yeah, and then to touch on that, Brett, so if this was reviewed off of the new code of 25%, the required usable space would just be over 1.1 acres. They're providing actually roughly close to 2, almost all of their open space provided in this filing would technically qualify as usable, as it is park area, it's open green space, playground, some things like that. So they would essentially meet and exceed the usable open space if it was reviewed reviewed under the new code. But just the total overall percentage is just at 3% short of what the new code would require, but still meeting that 20% of the previous.
I guess one other question I had, are the home sizes changing with this? And I know that you're at the same number of homes in this filing, but at least that's what I understood from the planning commission mean, but does the size of the house change?
On that, on the townhomes or the alley?
Well, the one where you're asking for the reduced setbacks and lot sizes, so both of them really. Where you're going from 1,800 square feet to 1,200 and 5,750 to 3,500 is the actual dwelling unit. Is that size changing, or is it this just we are transferring lawn space to your green courts and your alleys and things of that nature?
It's a little bit. So Michael Kirkendall, Vice President of Development with Catellis, the owner developer of the property. It's a little bit different because in this area with the townhomes, previously it was going to be apartments, or
Right.
That's what it was zoned for. And so you typically have a large lot, lots of units on that singular lot. And so the actual unit sizes will probably on average be a little bit larger than an apartment, probably starting at about 1,200 square feet. Whereas
Okay.
with an apartment, you would have a studio at 600 square feet, a one bedroom at 800. So it's really just about getting it from a bunch of units on one lot to each unit having its individual lot, and that was the requirement. So it's not a drastic change in terms of unit sizes, but it's just kind of a different format for the product, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything further you wanted to say,
No,
Mike?
just-
Okay,
That was it.
great. Melissa, did we have any public comments? Okay.
So
Anything further, Kevin?
nope, just remember these were two separate actions. So you'll have to take
Fully
roll call
understand.
on both. Yep. Okay. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. So could I have a motion for approving ordinance number 5, series 2020, public hearing, 2020, an ordinance approving the Timnath Landing Plan Development Overlay and Amendment?
I move and recommend approval of the Timnath Landing Plan Development Overlay Amendment with the following condition: to allow staff to work with owner applicant to address minor or substantive modifications, unresolved comments prior to final signatures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion approved, unanimously approved. Next, I have resolution number 30, series 2021. A resolution approving the Timnath Landing preliminary plat amendment number 2. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to recommend approval of the Timnath Landing preliminary plat amendment number 2 with the following condition: 1, to allow staff to work with the owner applicant to address minor or substantive, non-substantive modifications and unresolved comments prior to final signatures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, resolution number 31, which is a public hearing, resolution approving Timnath Landing 5th filing, minor subdivision. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So this is a minor subdivision application for what is known as the 5th filing for the Timnath Landing subdivision. It is for 4 lots immediately north of Harmony Road and east of Signal Tree and kind of the southeast of that and roundabout. The property is currently zoned CC Community Commercial, as highlighted there in blue. This proposal is for 4 commercial lots and 1 tract within the roughly 6 acres tract G of the Timnath Landing first filing. Lots 1, 2, and 3 will be roughly 1.5 acres in size, while lot 4 will consist of roughly 1.3. This subdivision falls within the Harmony Corridor. This is actually the first Harmony Corridor application that we do have in and was reviewed off of Section 5.10 of the Land Use Code, which is our Harmony Corridor standards. The development this is also the development structure plan for this subdivision based off of that requirement of the Harmony Corridor. And within this, you can see the access and pedestrian access and kind of the internal vehicular and pedestrian access within these 4 commercial lots. This subdivision will actually create a new right-in access only off of Harmony Road between lots 3 and 4 that you can kind of see here on the development structure plan. That will be new and constructed with this. That will then turn into the internal drive network for these 4 lots that will then actually tie into the roundabout here at Signal Tree. You can kind of see on the dashed line, that's roughly their internal drive network. Per section 578 of the landscape design standards of the land use code, this filing requires a minimum 25% open space. This filing is providing 20% open space, and they are meeting the required 5% open space of the Harmony Corridor standards with a plaza amenity. They have it on the north side within this subdivision. This area up here is their kind of plaza public gathering node that is a requirement. With subdivisions like this, it's a little hard to predict how these lots are going to develop out. So since they are providing 20% now with that public plaza gathering space, the remaining 5% is actually going to be added on to each individual lot that they will then make up the remaining 5% required open space with their, as each site plan comes and develops. Just to make then the full 25% requirement. This minor subdivision was reviewed against the land use code, and staff has found it to be in compliant. With that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Presswich for his presentation.
Hello again, thank you. All right, so now the minor subdivision.
We had this issue last time. There we go.
There we go. So again, this slide just shows the area that we're proposing to plat into these 4 future commercial lots, and then the 1 tract for open space and landscape area. The overall size is approximately 6.15 acres. The area is zoned currently community commercial. And then each lot will conform to land use dimensional standards, design standards as set forth in the Timnath Land Use Code. And we've already set it up so that the area will conform to the Harmony Corridor design standards. We don't have specific users for all of the lots at this time. That's part of the reason why you can't get into the as much detail. Each one of these lots will come forward with a specific site plan. We are working with a veterinary clinic animal hospital on the very far east lot, which is part of the reason really that we decided to go ahead and create these 4 lots right now. It'll be very helpful for future users to understand what they can potentially build there. And then this process also helps us for the future users help define access and how utilities will service this area. You know, that's this slide Kevin showed. It's just really the plat of the 4 lots. And then again, this is just really the bubble diagram of the area showing the access to those 4 lots, really coming from that private drive on the north side of the lot. And then again, that road continues from the roundabout to Signal Tree, provides that future right-in access from Harmony Road towards the east end of that lot. There's not a ton to talk about in this, so that really, you know, kind of wraps up our presentation on this, and we're happy to answer any questions.
So is there a deceleration lane into that right in, right out?
That's part of the reason we can only have it at that one location.
Could you repeat it
Sorry.
again?
Sorry. That's part of the reason we can only have it at that one location is we're pinched by the tracks that cross there. So
Yes.
that gives us just enough room to get the decel in the right in.
So there will be a decel lane on Harmony going into the right in, right out.
Correct. And it's
Okay.
only a right in.
Right. Great, thanks. Does it show it on here? I can't see it really well.
Yeah, you have to zoom in.
I'll zoom in a little bit there, Mayor. So this kind of, as you can see kind of here, this is the right in being proposed. This is the taper for the decel lane. That's where my
Okay.
hand's kind of.
And where Harmony Road is the current 2-lane Harmony Road.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Nice. It's a nice job. I appreciate you helping me understand that too, which makes tons of sense. So let's see. First off, public comment. Do we have anybody public comment for this? Did Rick cut you off or something? Is that? All right. Do I have a motion for resolution number 31, series 2021, a resolution approving Timnath Landing fifth filing minor subdivision?
I move to recommend approval of the Timnath Landing filing number 5 minor subdivision with the following condition. 1, to allow staff work with the owner applicant to address minor non-substantive modifications, unresolved comments prior to final signatures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks for your help, guys. Resolution number 32, series 2021, a resolution approving subdivision improvement agreement for the Fisher subdivision. Kevin, you're hogging the show tonight.
I know, I apologize. So for those of you on council, this is newer on council, this is probably a new thing for you. This is the subdivision improvement agreement for the Fisher subdivision. This basically sets up and dictates the development of the project for the actual construction of it. This is our standard form agreement. Normally Lori would be the one talking about this, but this was prior to her involvement. So this is why it's in my hands. But it's our standard agreement. Nothing has changed with that. So with that, this is just the final step to get the Fisher subdivision off and under construction.
And my understanding is we've already approved this provision. Yeah.
Yeah. So the final plat has been approved. This is just the document that guides the future, the development of that first filing and then the future filings.
And keeps Lori happy.
Yep.
All right. Comments, council? Okay. Could I have a motion for resolution number 32, series 2021, a resolution approving the subdivision improvement agreement for the Fisher subdivision?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Are you wanting something? Okay. Resolution number 33, series 2021, a resolution authorizing Timnath Reservoir Phase 2 improvements. Brian.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to be here with you today to talk about the reservoir again. Hopefully this will be one of the last times we have to talk about it this year. Give me 1 second to get my presentation in the Zoom meeting. Yes, this is when I dance. Let's see if I can just use my brand new transition lenses to see all the way across here. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's swap displays. There. That's not better. Swap displays back. Share the screen. Unfortunately, it looks like the Zoom meeting does not want to share, so I apologize to the people watching at home, and we'll make this presentation available on the website. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to move forward with the, there's not much in here that's not in the packet, so anybody who's looked at the packet is there. So we're here to talk about the Timnath Reservoir construction of phase 2. Phase 1, as you may recall, was the wall construction that is now complete. We posted some YouTube videos there during construction, and it's looking really good now that the water's all filled against it. As Matt can probably speak to a little bit later, we've gotten some increased activity out there and people wanting to kind of get out there. So we're trying to move these improvements forward to kind of finish off that phase of the park construction. What we've got here is the Timnath Reservoir Master Plan that was approved back in 2017. Just included it in the presentation so we can flip back to it if we have any questions about that. And here's the shoreline detail from that same master plan. Here is the scope of phase 1 and phase 2, similar to the presentation when we talked about phase 1. Phase 1 was the wall construction. Phase 2 is the improvement construction. So we've got parking improvements, the sand beach area, concrete trails, shade structures and picnic areas, landscape improvements, restrooms, and a small playground. I left this in here because this is the exact same list that we had when we did phase 2. I wanted to note the differences from where we were to where we are based on the survey. So we've very much scaled back the sand beach area. We've increased the number of trails, and we've removed the small playground and scaled back the landscape improvements there. We also took out the large pavilion space, so we now have just several small pavilion structures. We did do an RFP for phase 1 and phase 2. We issued that in early November. We had a pre-proposal meeting. We had a lot of people attend. We had 2 proposals come back, Mountain Constructors and ECI. We did award, based on the council's decision, a contract to ECI. The intent was to build both of these phases under that same contract. Both phases were in the scope of the RFP, and both phases were compared. It wasn't just that the wall construction was cheaper during that phase, but the entire project was cheaper during that phase. Here is the proposed budgets for phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1, you can see we have the budgets and then we have our actuals. So we came in about $10,000 under budget on phase 1. And then you can see the budget for phase 2. So we have the ECI construction contract at about 1.3 million. Materials testing, that's going to be all of our compaction testing for all of the concrete walks and other improvements. We're going to extend the electrical service from where our irrigation clock is right by the field there out to the guard shed there. They've been running that shed on a generator for the last 2 years, and we feel like it's really time to get them kind of on some wired power. They've made some improvements to that shed as well that are ready to accept that power. The construction administration estimate that's an hourly estimate for $65,000. That's for us to manage the contractor, do all of the observation, take the drone photos, put them up, make sure that everything goes in, manage the contract, evaluate any change orders, pay-ups, make sure that we're paying them for the things that they actually did. And then we already did this, but it was not included in the phase 1 scope. We did a public outreach piece that was $6,500. That's where we put together the survey, distributed the survey, put all the survey results back together, and then brought the recommendations and changes to the new plan. So that's a subtotal of about 1.42 million. We are asking for 5% construction contingency on the project, so that's 71,000. So that brings our total project cost to just under 1.5 million, which is just about what we have left in the budget for that project. The recommendations based on the survey. So what we did was, after we talked about the survey for a while, we broke those into three groups. The essential amenities to support all of the uses, that's the parking lots, the built parking, so we can kind of get those two uses separated. Then we have the trail piece, and then we have the shoreline improvements piece. The goal there was to be a 60-40 split on those improvements. We came in at 58 and 42, so pretty close to those percentages.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't understand those percentages
Sure.
as to a percentage of what.
So there's, okay, so if we look at the project as a whole, there's three categories.
Okay.
The essential amenities, that's 37% of the overall project.
Okay.
There's the trail construction, which is 36% of the overall project, and then the shoreline improvements, which are 26% of the overall project. So those three make up the 100% total $1.5 million. If you take the essential amenities out and then look at what our kind of discretionary spending on improvements is, trails versus park improvements, that's where you get the 58-42.
Okay, I got it.
Sorry, that was not very, I kind of ran through those pretty quick and there's a lot
That's
of numbers
okay.
on there.
That's why I asked the question.
So here is an overview of the phase 2 plan. You can see this is quite zoomed out because we're making changes in quite a few different areas. All the way up at the top where it says sheet 7, that's where we're extending a concrete walk from the edge of the western dam out to the abutment there. That's a great spot for viewing wildlife in the area. We kind of walked out there with some of our pros committee members as well, and they were they actually wanted us to start pushing further from there because they thought there was some other areas. Once we get a little further to the north there, it starts to get a little bit treacherous, so we need to do some ecological work to make sure that we're not going to be disturbing any habitat. And then there's some places where the water comes right up to the reservoir, so we need to have a kind of a more detailed plan for that area. But we can fairly easily get people out to that northern point there. Then we have the existing dam. We're not going to make any improvements on either the west or the south dam. Those are really good walking surfaces already. I mean, the ditch rider drives his truck on there all the time. I've pushed a stroller on there. There's not any problems with trying to access those areas. So we didn't want to make any improvements where they weren't really required. Then you come down to where it says sheet 6 right in the heart, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. That's kind of what we call the shoreline improvement area. And then all the way over on the right-hand side of the sheet is what we're calling the East Side Trail. That's going to connect from Biden's Gate at Bus Grove up onto the South Dam, and then it's going to actually extend all the way out to the lookout point that's kind of on the eastern shoreline of the reservoir. That goes right up to the point where there's going to be probably some future development happening there, and we didn't really want to get into putting improvements in there that might or may not fit with what their master plan is. It looks like that development's starting to come along, so we think in the next 2 years we'll have a much better idea of how to kind of bridge that gap. That's kind of the overview of the project. This is the shoreline plan. So you can see that what we've got is right against the existing road. We've kind of aligned the parking to kind of run parallel to the road there. 2 access points for easy circulation through that parking lot. Then we've got a small restroom structure. That's going to be a waterless restroom structure. It's kind of precast and constructed on site. Then we have the main spine trail. That's a 10-foot concrete trail running through there. And then between that trail and the reservoir, we've got a turf area. We have some picnic shade structures that kind of are right up against the wall, not right up against the wall, but kind of close to the wall. And then right up against the wall, we actually have an 8-foot crusher fines trail. That is going to serve a couple purposes. Number one, that crusher fines trail goes on top of the backfill section of the wall, somewhere where we don't really want to introduce a lot of water from irrigation or any other kind of improvements there. Number two, it provides a change of surface. So if you're tossing a Frisbee out there or something like that, it's not, you're going to be running on turf right up to that wall. That crusher fine, similar to like a warning track in baseball, will give you that notification that you're changing surfaces and there's something else that's about to happen. And then you can see kind of in the center there is a white small kidney space. That's going to be the sand area. So we've scaled that back considerably. In the previous plan, we had it sized for 2 sand volleyball courts. Now it's about 40 by 20 or maybe 60 by 20. So really just enough space for a couple of groups of kids to play in the sand, or if you want to lay a blanket out, which I'm not a huge fan of sand, so I'm not sure why you'd want to lay on the sand as opposed to on the grass, but If you want to do that, that's available for you there as well. That sand, we've had a couple of concerns about the sand. We've seen a lot of erosion out there. So we have a concrete curb that's going to line that entire sand area to kind of keep it separate. A lot of times when you see a grass sand interface, you get a lot of migration one way or the other there. So we want to keep that boundary kind of firm there. That's most of the improvements. We have a variety of different kind of passive seating areas sprinkled through there. The more yellow areas that you see on the graphic are native seed. So those ones are going to be a little more naturalistic. We've got a high grow meadow mix that we're going to use there. So we're hoping to get a bunch of wildflowers kind of coming through into those areas as well. We got a bunch of passive seating. You can see kind of those little gray fingers that go out there. Those are just little Crusher Finds trails that go out to boulders where you can sit and look out at the reservoir. There is one future improvement shown on here, which is that kind of L-angled line that runs out into the water. That's kind of where we've kind of planned to put a future fishing pier there. There's a little bit more design work that needs to go into that. And we need to kind of have a more detailed conversation with the reservoir company about that particular improvement. So we're not proposing to install that right now. I think we'll come back with some, in a future phase of the reservoir. If everything works out, we'll probably come back with some plans for that. Oh, yes. And then there is a large semicircle that's kind of outside of the sand area. That is a floating rope buoy system for a swim area. So that'll go from one staircase to the other. And so there will be a designated swim area there. We're not going to be posting a lifeguard. We'll have a lot of signs that are, no diving off the wall, swim at your own risk, all those kind of more naturalistic swim area type of regulations. Any questions on these shoreline improvements? This is the previous.
Mayor, I have a question.
Pardon? Wait, well, are you done?
Yeah,
Let him finish his presentation and then
I thought he asked if there were questions.
you're done?
I have a little bit more to go, but I asked if there's any questions on the shoreline.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just confirming that those two areas with the stairs, that's how people would get down to the water, correct? Because I know the sand area does not touch the water. So there would be steps going down there. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And about how deep is that I'm thinking little kids who, want to go play in the water. Are they going to need to have an adult with them to kind of go down there?
So when the water is full, the water comes up to about the second step going down, and there's 5 steps there. So when the water's full, it comes up to the steps, and then as the water recedes, it goes out. So I think it would require, as the parent of a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, I would supervise them as they go into the water.
Yeah, I was out there, Lisa. I don't think you want a 5-year-old.
I don't have a 5-year-old, so I'm
No,
not
but
worried
I mean-
about 5-year-olds for
But I mean,
myself,
I don't
but
think someone wants their 5-year-old walking around there and stuff.
It might be a good place.
But at the end, if
Yeah.
I can finish, at the end, when the water goes down, it's gonna be way past that. So it's hard to tell.
correct. But I'm thinking as a parent, you bring your kid to play in the sand area. Typically, when you go to a place like that, the sand touches the water. So I'm just a little unsure of how that will all play out with that sand area and then having to go down steps to get into the water.
We struggled with that exact issue for quite a while.
Maybe down the road, we can look at adding a splash pond or splash steel up a ways away from the water's edge where kids can still get wet and then go play in the sand.
Yeah, yes, definitely. We could look at that for sure.
Are you done?
I have, yes.
Okay. I've got a question. So how much length, I don't know the right way to say this, how many more trails, not number, but length of trails from the original plan to the current plan?
So the original plan didn't have any improvements outside of the shoreline area. So everything that we've done that's kind of on the north, we actually, I didn't talk about it, but there is a soft trail loop that goes around the boat parking area to the west with a spur that goes up to the outlook. And then everything that happens over on the east side, none of that was included in the first phase. So
Do you have any idea the lineal length of
yeah,
that?
on the east side, we're putting in about 2,800 feet of trail.
Okay,
On the north side, it's about 475 feet. On the west side, the Crusher Fines Loop and Spur is about another 2,600 feet.
on where's the last one you
The
said?
west side, so that's the Crusher Fines, the soft trail loop that goes around the boat parking and then up to
Okay. Okay.
the outlook.
Yeah. Is there a trail going the east side? You mentioned that there was east, yeah, when you have there on section 8.
Yes.
Is there,
Yeah, the area that is G8, so that's the connection from Busgrove and Biden's Gate that comes all the way up here. It also ties into the existing dam road.
so you're improving that there?
Yes, the north-south piece kind of from Biden's Gate out to the outlet.
Now, part of that's a road already. What?
So the trail will actually be beside the road.
Oh, okay.
In the first piece, and then we're gonna follow kind of that existing road
Okay.
going out.
Okay. Thanks.
One mile, then a little over a mile of trail.
Yes, that we're adding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it'll be about 2 miles from kind of that northern point, if you wanted to walk just along the reservoir perimeter out to the eastern point. That doesn't include kind of like the spur coming down to Busgrove or the soft trail loop on the west.
Brett.
Do you have an idea of the percentage breakdown of soft versus hard trail that you're putting in?
So the trail on Biden's Gate, from Biden's Gate going up, is a combination trail. So it's 5 feet of concrete and then 3 feet of soft trail. So that is kind of so it's almost equal length there. Yes.
Okay.
We're not putting any soft trail through the main improvements in the shoreline area. But then that whole other the west loop is all soft trail. So
Okay.
if you just compare the new linear feet of trail, I think we actually, so if you were to exclude, say, the east side, because that's a 1-to-1 match, we're putting about 500 feet outside of the shoreline that's concrete, but then 2,600 feet that's soft trail.
Okay. Thank you.
And then you didn't mention north. So is north soft trail too?
No, the north part is actually concrete.
Oh, it is.
Because of where the elevation of that trail compared to where the high water level is, that water level is going to get into probably the bottom part of that section of soft trail. So that would actually just kind of turn into a soup when the water's full. So we went with a concrete trail there.
Sorry, one more question. I'm still stuck on the sand piece a little bit, so bear with me, sorry. What did the survey say about a sand beach area? Do you remember how many people or what percentage of people want to? Part of me is wondering if it's something that we should hold off on doing right now if we didn't get a lot of community buy-in for it. Partly because I know there's upkeep with sand because it can get really nasty. And then the whole kids playing, not being able to go in the water, like that kind of piece. So I was just wondering what the community support was for it.
Lisa, I had the exact same concern and stuff too.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised Rick hasn't piped in because seeing all the sand blow away from Harmony Golf Course. Yeah, but here's, if I'm reading this right, the beach sand area is 6,500 is all we're spending on it, which doesn't seem to make sense if you're going to cement all around it.
The curb piece is a separate line item.
Okay, where's it?
It's the last line item in the shoreline.
The concrete. So it's 12,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, is Matt looking that up to the support?
So we didn't ask the specific sand question. We got a lot of write-in responses about sand, swim beach, with sand, which this doesn't really fit into that.
I would agree, yeah.
The reason it doesn't fit there is because we had, one of the reasons why we built the wall was because of the wave erosion that we were having. So very early in the improvements of the reservoir, there was an abutment in this area, almost where the sand beach is going to be. That was built out of old telephone poles, and it was kind of like wired together, and it was eroding inside of it. And it was, when our SRSA rep was out there, they're like, this is a hazard. You either have to like totally rebuild this thing and make it safe, or you have to get it out of here altogether. So we got it out of there altogether because we didn't really know what this should really look like. So that left an area that kind of we were able to observe over some time. All of that material just slowly sloughed right into the reservoir. We weren't able to kind of keep that in a nice simple gradient where you would want. So we evaluated a whole bunch of different alternatives. Like we could build some like kind of tiered walls there that would hold things back, and none of them really, we didn't come up with a concept that we thought would be functional, meet the intent of what we're trying to do, and preserve that sand material. There is in the future a very nice area for a sand beach associated with the East Side Trail, which would be, you can actually see it very nicely, right? That's a natural beach. It doesn't have the same, you know, our shoreline improvements kind of face wild wing, and we get a lot of wind coming through there. This one is in a little protected cove, so it actually is very nice for just being a natural beach there. So I think if we want to make some improvements in the future to kind of amenitize that space over there, I think that's would be the more appropriate place for a sand beach.
Yeah, because I guess my question would be, why bother putting sand? But I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm not sure I see the need for it. And I'm guessing you've had this conversation.
And I'll put my two bits.
So that's my thought.
Off of you, Lisa, here too, is great job. I'm really pleased with what you did. I'm really pleased with the trails. I think you did a great job with that. And I don't know if it's because I see what happens to the sand traps at Harmony blowing away every single year and going, and the fact that we've already got an erosion problem on the lake. You know, are we just throwing good money after bad and trying to create something that we and I'd like us, you know, Windsor has a beautiful sand beach over there on Windsor Lake, you know, so I get what the concept and trying to do is, and it'd be really cool. It's just, I think we're going to be bringing in a dump trucks of sand every single year to put it in there. That's my concern. I'm not an ecology expert, so I'm not going to fall on my spear on that, but I'd hate to, I hope you feel good enough to put it in there if you decide to do that, especially with the warnings I think we're giving you.
I wouldn't be heartbroken if it wasn't part of that, especially knowing that there's another area that in the future would make more natural sense to have a sand beach area, I guess. Because to me, I agree, this isn't a beach area if you don't have direct access, easy access to the, and I'm just picturing me, you know, when my kids were little, they're all covered in sand. I want to rinse them off before I leave, and to like be juggling and having to go down some stairs to kind of rinse them off would not really appeal to me. But
I think I've made my personal opinion on sand clear. So I probably would not be heartbroken if it went away either. I do think that we have tried as much as possible to protect this. You know, it sits a little lower than the wall. So hopefully the wall is going to kind of break a lot of the wind that's coming for the erosion on it. You know, we have a little bit of a lip around the concrete between that and the sand height. So I think we have tried as much as possible to make this a functional and sustainable design
Kevin would pipe in about sand erosion in like sand traps and stuff, but he's never in them. So.
Yeah, he doesn't, he hits right over every sand trap.
What I'm hearing here is this should be put on hold as far as the sand and save those resources for maybe the cove that you're talking about, or after we do a little more study on the thing if we need to.
I think that we can easily adapt the design to replace that with more turf, but make it into a section that could be carved out in the future. We'll kind of separately zone that on the irrigation so that if we want to come back and put that back in, we can do that.
I think that's a good conclusion. Any more comments? Brett, Ryan? So, Aaron, being that this is sort of your baby and you've been working at it diligently, would you like to make a motion? And I'd suggest maybe putting the caveat about the sand beach in it.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing Timnath Reservoir Phase 2 improvements with the following change, which would be to change that sand area over to some type of turf area as you see fit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carried. Budget calendar. Lisa, I guess I'm going to ask the question, do we really need to discuss it? You did a real nice job, laid it all out. I don't know if the council, does anybody in council have a question on it? I don't think, unless you have a pining desire to talk about it, I don't think we need to talk about it. I think you did a good job laying it out and it made tons of sense.
Okay, I just want confirmation on the dates for the work sessions and the timeframes and make sure that worked for everyone. So July
It did for me.
27th and October 12th, and we're
I
thinking
think we all
3
took a
hours
look
each.
at it, Lisa. I mean,
Okay.
everybody's pretty darn good responsible here. So I think if they had a problem, I think we would have mentioned it.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. 2021 event season update, Kim.
I have a pining desire to talk about the budget.
Well, I'm going to let you.
Mayor and council, thank you for having me here today. Before we get started, I do want to just introduce a couple of folks here in the audience. Megan Graham is the newest member of our Slate team, and she'll also be joining the Timnath communications team. So you'll be seeing a lot of her. And you all know Callie Hopp, who is our event coordinator and pretty much detail extraordinaire for all of the information that you have in your packet here today. I won't read the packet to you. You can all see the updates and what we're planning for the 2021 season. 2 items of note. I just want you to know that the state has kept Callie on her toes with regulations and guidelines and really trying to figure out how do we do events in the most safe way possible. And then we didn't have to worry about it. So we really are still making sure that we follow all of the guidelines, all of the written rules that are associated with COVID-19 while still having a fun and safe summer. So you'll see a little bit of difference, particularly in July 4th. Now, July 4th, I do want you to notice that we don't have to make any decisions about July 4th because as you heard from Don earlier today, we're feeling confident that Bus Grove is going to be ready by July 4th. And so that means we do not have to change our existing event plan. And so then we get to breathe a big sigh of relief. That was actually great news. So thanks to the engineering team for that. Outside of that, you can see the other events and sort of anticipated expenses and attendance, and I will answer any questions if you have them.
I'll throw out one thing, just question, and it's a question to the council as much as anything else. So last year we added the second cleanup day solely because of COVID and was another way to add. And is that still make sense having a second cleanup day or not? And I'm asking, that's not I don't have any care which it is, but I would like us at least to explore the question of, is that something that we want to continue?
If I could speak on that, I think that there's a lot of demand for what happens there. And I think having that second would be, I think you'd see just as much attendance at the second one as we did at the first. And I know the first was very popular again this year. It's a popular service that we can provide.
Yes, Lisa.
One is, did we check the date to see if any of the neighborhoods are having their garage sales?
We will before we publish this,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. And then a second question is, have we ever looked into, or could we look into what the cost would be to add an area where people can dispose of hazardous materials, paints, cleaners, those kinds of things? I'm sure people have tons of that in their homes and their garages. And I know those are some of the things that are sometimes hard to find places to bring them. I don't know what a cost would be for that, but is that something we could potentially look into, even if we need to? I know like they charge to dispose of mattresses, for example. So I don't know.
I have a sneaking suspicion Kelly's like dying to come up here and tell you all the details of that. But how about we say we'll double check dates and costs of what that would take for the fall cleanup and just add it into an update that we provide through your council packets.
Yeah, just add it to our agenda then when you're ready.
Sure.
Thank you.
Except to go on, I do want to add to your comment because I think it's good. Did you make sure you don't have a CSU football game that day?
Oh my gosh, that would be sacrilegious. We will double check.
All right.
I'm writing both of those
Yes,
down.
go ahead. Aaron has.
So on the Taste of Timnath, what is the reasoning to change the branding of that? And I see now it's food trucks as opposed to us providing some food, and no 4K or 5K run or any kind of way to give back to I mean, it seems like this whole thing is revamped from before.
It is a little bit pared down, to be honest, and part of that is cost. So remember, this event budget is less than it has been in years past, and the food was a big piece of that. When we started planning this out, food trucks also felt a little bit, or are a little safer for COVID guidelines, as opposed to having food that we would be serving and handling. So this originally was envisioned when we were operating under a more strict guideline for how to handle food and keep people safe. The running race, although fun, was a lot of logistics for not that much reward. And so as we evaluated what were people really excited about and what were they not, the running race didn't really rise to the top. And so we did just decide to table that or cancel that component of it. We did feel it was really important to have some sort of downtown event also. So this is, having that downtown feel where we're shutting off the downtown streets and having that real festival ambiance. We are still looking at and considering doing like a beer garden. And so that would be an opportunity to do some fundraising for a nonprofit organization at that point, instead of having that be at the 5K or something like that. So that was the thinking behind it, but of course, open to suggestions.
Question. Why, we've got a beautiful new park now, a lot more space, a lot closer to more residents there than Old Town. Why wouldn't we hold that in that park as opposed to basically a residential Main Street?
So the thinking was, and you see in the tentative list, as soon as the world opened up again, we thought, well, what else could we do to bring the community together? And we thought of this idea of an ice cream social at the Timnath Community Park. And essentially what we're trying to do is pepper these events throughout the community. So they're not only in one, I talk with my hands, not only in one area. So we'll have a downtown event, which might also help highlight the businesses that are in the downtown area, in addition to providing a place to gather. We'd have an event over at the Timnath Community Park that is not just about dumping your trash and kind of moving on, but as another place to gather and bring people together. So what we're looking at really, Mayor, was can we have events throughout the community and really try to bring a sort of a balance between what happens at the park and what happens in downtown.
The town's changing, and I think we need to be nimble. There's a lot of people at Wild Wing you're dishing by not having stuff out there. There's a lot of people in Saratoga Falls that are getting dished. And so I hope we're thinking through the evolving nature of Timnath when we are thinking through these things. I mean, it was 8 years ago, Timnath had 650 people all in one little spot.
Right.
Now we've got 7,000 people in Timnath Ranch and Harmony and Saratoga Falls and Wild Wing. And I think we've got to be more open-minded and inclusive with where we're doing these events.
Mhm.
Can I make?
Sure.
So I guess along that, I know that we don't have the concert series. Obviously, the Ice Cream Social has a concert, with it. So that sort of takes place of one of those concert events. But to Mark's point, I know maybe it's too late at this late of a date, but to do maybe one of the concerts or pick up two concerts and do one at least up at the Wild Wing soccer fields, if we could get those, reserved on a day that they don't have, I know it's very busy up there, but if it was possible to do something up there for the Wild Wing and have a concert up there, or in Saratoga as Saratoga, probably not this year because I don't think they have a park quite yet, but they will. And, for future years, maybe doing that concert series, one up in Saratoga, one in Wild Wing, one down in the community park, to spread that around a little bit.
And you got a great comment, Aaron, and maybe we can parlay something here. So I'm going to look to you guys. I think you know where I'm going to be going is, will the trail system and that be up over at the reservoir? And we've got our large green grass area there. Could we put a bandstand there? And I understand we've got one that's mobile. Could we put our bandstand there, which would be closer to Saratoga and to Wild Wing? And actually, probably if you did geometry, the geometric center of Timnath now, it probably would be right there when you take Timnath Ranch, Harmony, and then have Saratoga and Wild Wing and Old Town. I think that's probably geography wise the center. Now the question is, which I'm going to look to you guys, we don't want to run an event there and be running through a construction zone. So are we a year too ahead?
Actually, what you're describing is kind of what the 4th of July has been in the past. So I think that I do think we might be a year ahead at the reservoir.
Okay.
Just because we're going to be starting this probably in mid-June, and it's going to be a 3-month process. So that's going to put us towards the end of the summer there for the construction to be complete. So, but there is a big park at Wild Wing. I mean, there's not a lot of park-like improvements there, but there is a giant turf field with some parking.
And we could put, the bandstand in there and do that. And, it seems like we dished Wild Wing and Saratoga forever.
Yeah.
They've never had the town's never had an event over there.
4th of July. 4th of July used to be at Wild Wing.
The first time.
In Wild Wing? Oh, okay. How long ago was that?
3 years ago. 3 or 4.
Okay.
But I think what we can
Not
do
much.
is
Let's go there.
see if there's room in our existing event budget to shoehorn, if you will, maybe one more concert or an ice cream social type event that is simple. So we're not, having a lot of expenses with the logistics, but some music, some snacks, and just an opportunity for people to gather. And considering the reservoir might not be in the cards this year, let's look at seeing if we can do that up at Wild Wing. And like I said, if we can do that within the existing event budget and, save a little bit of money in other places so that we can do a couple more things, I think that would be great.
And maybe I'm speaking out of turn with what you all think, but it seems to me if we wanted to try to do this concert up at the Wild Wing, if you just said, hey, we're going to have a band play up there, bring a picnic, and we don't have to provide anything else.
And we get food trucks,
and then
have the food trucks show up
happy to show up and
I mean, it doesn't have to be a big major production. It can be, the idea is to be a community gathering, not can we feed the whole northern Colorado? Yeah, Brett.
Just kind of the 2 cents I'll add, and going off your comment about a community gathering. I like the idea of a lot of these events, including some form of being able to play together as a community. I like the 5K, but if you don't think a lot of people are doing it, that's fine. But something along those lines, I think would be something that would add an extra element of bringing people together, whether it's a volleyball tournament or a cornhole tournament, or just, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but just something that helps get you interacting with people that are outside of those you immediately came with or already know. I think would be something that might add a little bit.
That's great feedback.
On the cornhole tournament part, I know that there was someone in Timnath a few years back that was already organizing something like that. And I don't know, maybe it didn't go well. That's now that I'm saying it, I'm sort of recalling.
Well, no, it was a great turnout. A lot of really big success. He's actually a Timnath resident, and it's a nonprofit organization. Since when COVID, he wanted to do it last year, but we, with the restrictions and everything, it just wasn't the right time. He actually went over to Windsor and is doing it, I think, this year in Windsor. But I think he'll be back. I think as it evolves, it'll be back probably.
Yeah, because I could see maybe part of getting both a concert and this cornhole tournament and just a picnic and some food trucks all together in one thing. And then they'd have that for a good charity event. But really all we would be responsible for is the concert itself and organizing food trucks.
So Kim, here's what I'm hearing. I think you were under the impression, let's go same old, because we lost it all last year and now we're going to come in. I think what this council's instructing you is we'd like you to be more creative.
Yep.
That come back to us with more creative ways to be community, more creative ways on location, more creative ways on events, and come back to us. So I'm gonna look to each of you guys for a nod, but I'd like to not put this in the record as such, because I think I'd like to see, I know you're incredibly creative. I know Callie's incredibly creative and can come up with things, and let's put your creative juices to work and come back to us with what you're hearing every one of these council people suggesting to you.
May I ask one clarifying question? Is there any event on that list that you do not want to see change?
I know the holiday lighting is always so popular to have that, so I would not want to see that change from what it has been. But that's my 2 cents.
I'm not sure what could change on the 4th of July at this point.
Yeah, that ship's kind of sailed.
Okay.
I think one of the things I like is I don't think we need to feed people. I think getting the availability of food trucks, having the availability of restrooms and that kind of stuff is incredibly important. But I don't think we need to be feeding people. And if you're not doing that, all of a sudden it creates the opportunity to put our money in other places.
Can I just add, one thing is I actually don't mind being fed at some of these events. So I'm not opposed necessarily to adding some of that. I don't know how much that cost us. I would also add that for me, I know initially the budget for this year was was decided in the past. And I'm certainly not saying let's add $1 million to our budget, but my personal opinion would be that if you have ideas that would be really good community events that are not currently in the budget, I know I would be open to hearing what it would cost to add some of those in. Okay. So I would say, as far as when you're brainstorming and coming up with these ideas, I would suggest, and like I said, this is my opinion, to not limit yourself to what we currently have in the budget, because I'm sure there are other, some low cost items or some items that we might hear about and say, oh, this is great, let's do it. So that's kind of what I would say with that as well.
And Lisa, you elaborated better of what I was trying to express of let's be creative and look at new things and not restrict ourselves. And, maybe you come back with 2 or 3 ideas,
I think so.
here's our high dollar, here's our medium dollar, here's our low dollar, and come with us if I'm getting nods from everybody here. So I think that's what we're suggesting to you.
That's perfect. We can do that. Great.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, you don't get to leave yet.
No, I'm still here.
So let's talk about, well, and I guess the question is, should we talk about Colorado Youth Outdoors when we talk about this whole thing, or do you want to talk about it now? Okay, all right. So go ahead.
So as you saw in your packet, we have a sponsorship request from Colorado Youth Outdoors. As this is sort of outside of our normal operations, we wanted to bring this back to you for consideration. You'll recall that last year, because we did 0 events, we were looking for ways to support our community and to offer some holiday cheer. And so we did sponsor the light tour out at CYO to the tune of about $25,000. This year, CYO has come back and asked for our support and have given us some options, as you saw in the letter to the mayor and council. So just looking for some conversation and guidance around how you'd like to approach particularly this request and perhaps any other future requests that we get in this same vein. Oh, and Bob is here from CYO, and I almost forgot to say hello and thank you for being here. So I don't know if Bob wants to say a few words, if that's appropriate.
So real quick, because I would like to have you, Bob, but before I do that and get myself in trouble, is that okay, Lori? Okay. Yeah, Bob, would you come talk?
Of course.
Mayor, council members, thank you. My name is Bob Hewson. I'm the president of Colorado Youth Outdoors. Kind of surprised it's the first time that I've been in front of the town council, being so close, and what I believe is a continued knitting of our organization and your town. We feel so privileged to be neighbors. And I think most of you know that we're in your GMA. However, with being a nonprofit, I'm not sure that what that'll look like in the future. But last year, through the connection of Callie and the folks, we were able to partner, if you will, on a fabulous event. We took a significant risk in providing something for Northern Colorado. And quite honestly, you folks, your decision to sponsor the residents' tickets was a major move forward for us, gave us an enormous amount of enthusiasm. So, yep, thank you, Callie and Kim. Last minute, I asked if we could have the video up. And so thank you for that. And I hope that everybody had a chance last year to attend. See what you invested in, what you brought your community to. We were certainly very, very thankful and continually grateful for our neighbor to think so kindly of us and partner on it. So this year, and last year we invested about just over $200,000, bringing it to life. We look to double that again. We use the term double the density. We've had a lot of requests of, that was so much fun. What are you going to do for the next year? And we're fortunate in having a board that feels the same way we do in that. Let's just keep growing this event. So we have, formally put out a request. We know that this is, right up the, it's challenging of other events. You guys do a lot of great stuff. And we hope that we would be always in consideration of working together, finding ways to do special things to what we call our community, knowing that we're not formally in the community of Timnath, but we think of ourselves in that manner.
Thanks, Chris. Or do you have more?
Nope, I don't. And it's Bob.
We might have you some questions and stuff,
Mayor,
but.
Yep. So I know that Chris Woodward, our Director of Operations, wrote the formal letter, and I'm here to take any further questions that might help us make a great decision.
Does anybody have any questions for Bob? Yeah, Rick.
The key that I think you said, growing this event, and what I envision, and I think we're on the same page, is it could get better every year and make it where it's a common thing to want to go over there, and it'll grow every year too. So I'm all in favor of pushing this thing. Good cause.
You did hear that correctly. We intend to grow it. And we have a 5-year plan that I think will be very exciting. Actually, we're excited where we are now. The fact that we have permission from our board to grow in significant nature. And quite honestly, we have seen it from I-25, but we have invested heavily into a tree farm that is purely Christmas trees. So someday you'll be able to go there and cut your own Christmas tree. We last year planted about 7,000 Christmas trees, and we look forward to ramping that up to have a planting schedule of about 10,000 a year. So you can imagine how that's going to couple with that event.
Yes, Lisa.
So I don't have a question for you, but I did want to say, I thought it was a great event last year. My family did go. I do have some concerns about, as a community, us donating or sponsoring any type of nonprofit. I work for a nonprofit,
Okay.
so I understand that, but at the same time, I just wonder if as a council we were choosing to sponsor or look at nonprofits, I would like us to have some kind of process where all nonprofits would get an opportunity to request funding. Last year, I think, was unique in the sense that we didn't have our tree lighting, and knowing that hopefully that'll still be on there, since I know Aaron mentioned that as one of the events that hopefully will still be on our calendar for this next year. I would like to push people to go to that event. And then, like I said, it's just kind of a level plan. And maybe it's a personal thing for me because I work for a nonprofit as well. So to me, I'm like, well, why can't you sponsor my fundraising event kind of thing? So, so it's not anything personal to you or Colorado Youth Outdoors. I think you all have a great mission. I think you do a lot of good work. But for me, that's kind of my hesitancy, I guess.
May I respond?
Yes, absolutely.
Councilwoman, I don't know if you knew this, but last year, and we tend to do this every year, we supported 4 other nonprofits beyond CYO, and we gave over $20,000 to those nonprofits, giving them a chance to have their night at Winter Wonderland. So I'm not familiar with which nonprofit you're with, but every year we plan to continue that, where nonprofits get to send a request to be the recipient, and they get their night. And the intention is that they market it to their constituents, and they were it was very well received.
Let me respond to Lisa's comment, and I understand where she's coming from, but I would say this one sets itself aside because it's so unique that it provides everybody in our town with an opportunity to do something as well. It gives them something, a free ride, if you will, at Disneyland. Whereas a lot of the other non-for-profits, we could contribute like we did to the schools to help air conditioning and things like that. But this is unique in that everybody in town was invited to go out there and be a part of this kind of deal. And that's where we should look and see if there's other not-for-profits that have similar kind of things. I would be all ears kind of thing. But just to say we're going to cut a check for this one or that one, and I was going to raise the same point you did. There was not just your organization, but there's others that share in the proceeds of what people have given and what the town had given.
I don't look at this at all as a donation to a nonprofit at all. What I see this is a town event, and we've got, CYO is part of Timnath. It's right. It's not, it's there. The only reason they're not annexed is because of the environment there and shooting guns. They do a tremendous job, but the event is unique, and it's one of those that people will remember years later. I grew up in Fort Collins, and Woodward Governor used to have the event that was there, and everybody from Fort Collins knew about Woodward Governor and driving through. And this is very, very similar, if not identical, to what they did. And for us to give free tickets, we're not giving The other thing is we're not giving money to CYO as such. We're giving tickets to our residents to sit there and go through. So we're supplying them with a event, not donating to CYO. And so to me, it's totally different than I don't think you can put it into this is giving money to the nonprofit. I think this is somebody's creating an event for our town residents that we have the opportunity to let our town residents go in for free and with us paying for it. And it's so unique that it'll be something years to come people are going to remember as something special about Timnath. And we don't have things special about Timnath. I mean, step back. There is not much. I mean, we got an old town that has 4 businesses. So we do not have anything real unique. And I've been here a whole lot longer. I've hunted here. I sat there and
I think we're special.
Well, I don't think there's anything real special that if you ask someone in Fort Collins something, what's with Timnath? Beautiful place, great place to live, love being here. But as far as is there an event or something to come to in Timnath, we don't have it. And this is it. Yeah, Brett.
I mean, I'll comment that I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I kind of share some of Lisa's hesitation. Last year was certainly was a special case. We did not have a Christmas event. I guess where I come back and forth on this is, if we think about our purpose of town events and all the discussion we just had about a community building thing, we're not really getting people together. But at the same time, like the cleanup day, it is a service that we're discussing possibly providing to the community. And so I really do go back and forth. And I hope we're, have any kind of lockdowns in the rearview mirror now, but I suppose we don't know what this winter will look like as well. So I mean, at a minimum, I certainly want to keep this on the table for this year. And I'm certainly grateful for you allowing us to participate last year. I think you put on something far better than anything we were talking about trying to do for the residents. And I think your organization is great, but I just have some mixed feelings about it. I'm not 100% sure where I fall on it.
And Bob, you can sit down
Yeah.
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So those are my 2 cents in terms of just how we should view this event. Is this like the cleanup day, a service we're trying to provide to the community? We're paying these businesses to come in and take our trash away in exchange for a service to the residents, or is that a worthwhile service or not to provide to the community?
I guess it's my turn. So I'm probably more on the Lisa Brett camp of just not knowing exactly where I'm at. So on this, I think we should revisit this when we look at the other events and where that budget lies with those. I think setting a precedence of, I guess I'm more in the mindset that Lisa is of supporting a nonprofit. And then are we picking winners and losers, because there's plenty of people that have ties in Timnath with nonprofits. So I guess if we're setting a precedence there, that's where it causes, as Rick would say, it caused me a little heartburn, is picking, are we choosing and picking winners and losers?
Let me ask you a question, Lisa and Aaron. Would you have any heartburn if because this is almost the middle of this, we're getting towards summer and their event's going to go forward anyway, that we revisit after this year in the budget discussions coming up. But this year, say we're going to commit just like we did last year. So planning wise and budget wise, they know they're going to go forward this year and they've got at least us as an anchor to help them this year. And then we can revisit this when we do the budget talks and put it down. Because I think we've already budgeted for events like this in this budget cycle.
So what I would ask is, And it kind of brings up what Brett had said about, bringing community together. And I don't know how many cars go through each night or anything like that. But would there be a way to tie all of Timnath going through and having some kind of community event, whether it's at Colorado Youth Outdoors or something where we do the concerts that are normally at the tree lighting or something like, and I have no idea right now. So I'm just kind of brainstorming, but whether we could turn that into some kind of community event that takes place over there would make me feel better, because I do agree, like when you talk about, is it a service we're providing? I don't consider it to be a service. I think it is something that we're providing for our community members. So don't get me wrong on that, but it's a little bit different in my mind than the cleanup day, which to me is a little bit more service. But if we could tie it to somehow the community event, or, whether people drive through and then go to the tree lighting, or I don't even know.
I'm gonna let you guys talk about this later, so I prefer that you don't add any more comments here. But
So I'm also wondering if we could table it, until, because I think you'll be coming back to us relatively soon.
which was sort of how I was gonna start this anyway.
Yes, so what I can do is include perhaps some additional coordination and collaboration and figure out what that might look like. And then include the sponsorship as part of your a la carte menu as we look at events and programs for the next, 8 months.
And Bob, I think I knew where you're probably gonna head, and so put that and incorporate that with the presentation that Kim's gonna bring next time. And I invite you to please be here too.
Mark, if I could, just
Somebody?
Mark,
Wait, who's talking?
over here. Just as point of clarification to Councilmember Collins' comment, I just want to make sure this is not budgeted in this 2021 budget. So this would be an additional expense. Part of the reason as a staff, we felt it was important that you folks discuss. So I just want to make sure language-wise, we were clear that it is not in the 2021 budget as it stands.
Any other comments? Okay, so I think what we'll do is, Kim, this is to be part of your presentation when you come back, please.
Yes.
And we'll cease the discussion unless somebody has anything they'd like to say. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Kim. Good discussion. Anything else? Anybody have that they'd like to go? Great discussion, everybody. Great comments. And so could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.